is just a huge honor. Something I never ever do. How many shows have we done? Like 700 shows? Is bring back someone for a second time. But we did a podcast interview with you. I don't know if you remember it. And it was, but I think I got more feedback and more responses from that. And I think, so let me read his bio in case you didn't hear the first show. If you didn't hear the first show, go back and watch it. But Bruce B. Baird. So that's 3 B's.
It's triple B. Yeah.
What's the middle B sound?
Berland.
Berland.
It's a family name that I could have gotten. The other B wouldn't have been Bruce, it would have been Briscoe. So that would have been Briscoe Berland Baird. And I would have been a junior. I would have been the third or whatever. So, yeah.
Well, I would have been the third, too. My grandfather was Howard Taft Farran. But by the time he had my dad, he hated President Taft and changed it to Howard Eugene Farran. So I'm Howard Eugene Farran II. So if President Taft would have been a better president, I'd have been the third.
Yeah, there you go.
He's one of America's most productive dentists and leading productivity expert. Practiced comprehensive treatment planning and full mouth restorative care in the Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas area. In 1990, he established the Texas Centers for Implant Dentistry, a mobile practice that allowed him to work with more than 25 doctors in the region. Recognizing his ability to help other dentists achieve the same success, in 2004, Dr. Baird founded Productive Dentistry Academy and partnered with Vicki McManus, RDH, who he is also the founder of Comprehensive Finance. You know, it just gets simple, the fact that, well, I want to give you 2 examples I want to set up. Well, if your overhead's $1 and you only do $1 for the dentistry, you got 100% overhead.
You got it.
But if you could do $2 of dentistry on that same overhead, your overhead's now 50%. And a lot of these dentists, 82% of dentists signed up for a PPO. So when you and I got out of school, the number one expense was labor, 28%.
Yep.
And now the number one expense is adjusted production. I charge $1,000 for a crown, but I only get $600 on this PPO. So their number one overhead is a 42% adjusted production.
It's amazing.
And then they still have the 28% labor because they give their staff $1 raise every time the earth goes around the sun. It's based on pure astrology. And so at the end of the day, they try to cut their overhead by buying their gauze online or not using as much in alginate or only using a half cup of raisins in a box of Raisin Bran. Whereas you or the other side of the coin says, you know what, why don't you just do 10 crowns instead of 5? I mean, you do more dentistry in less time than anybody I know. How do you do it?
You know, I love, first of all, I think it's, you know, loving our patients, having fun with patients, and having those patients that I can get to do all this great dentistry. You know, so it's not about speed. People always think, oh man, it's about how fast you cut the preps. It's just cutting preps. I mean, it's just doing it. You know, when you're not afraid to diagnose 5 crowns or 10 crowns or whatever it is, or you ask the right questions. You know, you say, hey, you like your smile, or you start thinking about, you know, how's it going with the smile, and they're like, you know, well, I really would love to change it. And then, you know, as you are in practice longer and longer, you get more friends of friends and that type of thing. So you get the advantage and the opportunity to be able to do more dentistry that way. I like the fact that I only work 2 days a week because, you know, I give up. I mean, as you get older, you know, you start sacrificing, you know, you don't have any more time. You realize time is, you know, you've got a little limitation on how much time you're going to be on the planet. And so I just love the fact that I get to work 2 days a week, produce more than I used to produce in 5 or 6 days, and still be able to enjoy playing golf, lecturing, teaching, doing what other things I want to do.
So you work 2 days a week, 8 days a month?
8 days a month for the last 12 years. Yeah.
And what do you usually produce on a day or a 2 day week or a month?
I produced 2.1 million last year.
On a 2 day week?
On a 2 day week.
Just you, not
just
your hygiene,
no,
not your associates.
Just me.
Not selling whiskey out the back door.
No, we thought about that. So yeah, we thought about that, but you know,
so you're doing
I do about
$2 million a year on 2 days a week. Just Bruce B. Baird.
That's right. I do about probably average out around 22,000 a day.
Okay, I know how my homies think. I mean, I've been reading them on Dentaltown for 4 hours a day since 1998. They think if anybody goes fast, the quality goes down.
Right.
If you were going to do it high quality, it'd take 40 days and 40 nights to do a sealant. Do you agree with that, or do you disagree with that?
I don't. I mean, first of all, let's just look at $10,000 worth of dentistry, because that would be, you're talking about double, triple the national average. National average is about $3,400 a day. Well, let's think about that. How much dentistry is $3,400? I mean, it's not very much dentistry. I mean, well, you cut 3 crowns and do 5 fillings, and you've just done your whole day. And that's the average dentist in the U.S. And so it doesn't take, if you're only going to do $3,500, you and I would be doing something else by 10 o'clock in the morning or 11 o'clock. Or what else are we going to do today? I don't know. And so it's not about the speed of how fast I cut it. It's just because I have a healthy new patient flow, because I tell patients this is what I would do if it was me. I'm not trying to hit a home run on every person that walks in, but what I'm trying to do is just share with them, this is what I'd do if it was me, and I get the opportunity now to do 5 crowns on one patient, 3 on another, and by the end of the day, and put in a couple implants, do a sleep appliance. It's not all about one little thing that we do. It's about a multitude of things that we do during the day, and having a great team that helps along with that. So as far as the quality of the dentistry, I mean, you could easily do 30 grand a day.
Well,
and have great quality.
The dentist knows what he says. Regina Hertzlinger was the first PhD medical economist, showed that on just a hernia repair. The docs who did the whole thing under 5 minutes had like a 2% failure rate.
Right.
And by the time it took 15 minutes, it was like a 10% failure rate.
Absolutely.
But an oral surgeon pulled those 4 wisdom teeth in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And Dr. Numbnuts would take an hour and a half for one, and then he thinks the guy doing the faster crown is lower quality.
No question.
The endodontist does all their molars in an hour,
yeah.
And then you're doing an hour and a half thinking. So everything you know about speed is people who do it the fastest. Every movement is with purpose. Intention.
That's
they're
right.
prepared,
That's
so the
exactly
quality's
right.
higher.
I think that, and dentists who've gone through Productive Dentist Academy, they all say the same thing. I feel like I'm doing better dentistry. I'm getting to help more people. You think about it, a high-speed handpiece turning, 400,000 RPMs or whatever, electric handpiece. I mean, how long can I keep it on the tooth? I mean, if
in the time some of these guys take to prep a crown, I could have drilled all the teeth to the gum line.
Yeah, exactly. And we asked that question. I asked the question of my team one time. They said, "What's the difference?" Because I have had associates over the years and have a couple of guys that work with me now. And I just said, "What's the difference when I sit down to do a crown prep and when someone else does?" And they said, "Well, you just seem like you know where you're going. You know what you want to end up with, so you just do it, as opposed to." Like in dental school where we would, it took us 3 hours to a buccal pit.
That's what they do. They drill, rinse, dry, look.
Right, exactly.
Drill, rinse, dry, look.
Yep.
Drill, rinse, dry. It's like, God damn, would you just drill the damn prep? Just drill it.
Oh, I know. And so I watch, I tell a story that I had one of my associates he was one of my students at Baylor. I was teaching the senior class at Baylor, doing just on kind of practice management type stuff. But he became an associate of mine. Sharp kid, really, really sharp kid. Good dentist, good hands. And he was doing his first full arch, case where he was prepping the full whole upper arch from, say, 3 to 14. And I go in, patient was at 8 o'clock, patient comes in about 10:15. Patient gets there at 8, and I go in just to kind of look over his shoulder and just say, "How's it going?" And he said, "Oh, it's going great." And he was on tooth number 5. So he'd prepped 3, prepped 4, and now he's prepping 5. And I said, "Hey, you mind if I just kind of show you a little something?" And he said, "Oh, no," it was kind of like being a dental. So I sat down. I said, just kind of the way I like to do things. I went, took a burn, went between every tooth all the way around to on the other side of 11, and did my reduction. Took a big barrel diamond, and I cut dry, by the way, which everybody says, "Oh my gosh, you're melting the teeth." I hate endo. I don't like doing endo, and it does not affect as long as I'm using. I tell the students, I said, I cut dry with an electric handpiece. I can't tell you to cut dry with a air-driven, but I cut dry because you spend 30% of your day watching people spit, and I don't have to do that. So I cut dry, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, I got these anteriors cut, prepped, and he's looking at me with his eyes just, it's like I had just done something illegal or something, and he was like, whoa, that's cool, and but it really is. You get in there, you know what you want to do, you know what you want it to look like, so just get in there and do it. Don't just sit and jack around. I spend more time sitting in my office now than I used to.
We should, on Dentaltown, if you start a thread on the very first post, you can decide if it's going to be a poll. And so many people say, well, nobody does that or everybody does that. I would say, show me the data. They never have any data. You should start a question, poll, do you cut dry? Because my next door neighbor was a valedictorian of his Creighton Dental School class and was my next door neighbor and is the reason I'm a dentist, Kenny Anderson. And he always cut dry, and he always had the same damn reason you did. But I think in dentistry, if the lecture circuit's saying, oh, you got to use copious amounts of water, and you're cutting dry, you just kind of like stay down in the closet.
Yeah.
But I was very amazed the other day on someone we're doing a podcast talking about morning huddles. She said, well, I think they're a waste of time. And I said, damn, every consultant says do a morning huddle. So she started a poll. 50% of the time he said, no, we don't do a morning huddle. And we did 2.1 million last year. So there's 100 ways to skin a cat.
Yes, there is.
Start poll. Sure. So if my homies went to your website, productivedentist.com, what would they find out on your website?
Oh, they find video. I mean, we got a lot of video content. You can get practice assessments done there on the website. We kind of look into the practice to kind of find out what kind of help we can give you, to increase your productivity. Our average yearly growth, this is in last year's statistics, was about 280 grand. We grew the practice. That's our average client, grew 280 in the year 2016.
But when you say your average client, what do you mean? The dentist came down for a course?
Yeah,
was this course 2 day, 3 day?
It's a 2.5 day course.
2.5 day course. Does he come alone? Does he bring his
Usually
assistant?
Brings team. If they don't bring their team, they usually return the next time with their team. So I always say, either way. I mean, I'm one of those guys who I kind of want to hear somebody first and listen to the philosophy before I jump in and bring my whole team. But I think that since we've been around for 14 years, we have more people that come and say, hey, I've heard it, I want to bring my whole team. And so we've seen a lot more of that. Like we'll have.
And where are they bringing their whole team to? Is it in Granbury or is it in Dallas?
It's not Granbury, it's Fort Worth, Dallas-Fort Worth area.
So I thought you were in Granbury, too.
I am. So we just go over and we just get a hotel. And,
okay.
So we put a 2.5 day course together, and it's all lecture. Then we have coaches. We have coaches all over the country. And so when somebody is a client of ours and is in coaching with us, that's the average growth is what they say.
And your average client increases $280,000 a year.
That was last year's statistic. And we've had guys that have gone a lot more.
By the way, we don't do commercials. How much money did you pay me to be on the show?
Yeah, a lot.
But this guy won't even buy me a beer at the bar afterwards. How bad is it? But no, you have raving fans. I mean, you don't have people say, "Yeah, I saw Bruce Course, it was good." You don't hear that. You're like, "Yeah, that guy," because it's a different level.
It is.
I mean, when you blow through so many you shatter so many glass ceilings that they stand back. It reminds me of the first time I saw Carl Misch.
Yeah.
I was all scared to death to lay a flap and place an implant, and I'm with him. He's got this anesthesiologist laid this guy out flat, and he's looking at me the whole time while he does a full arch split. He's sewing the linguals of the mandible to the other side, and half the time he's talking to me. He's looking, and I'm like, "Don't look at me! Look in there!" And then I watched him place like 8 uppers and 6 or 8 lowers in a half an hour.
Exactly.
And I'm sitting there dinking around with this one little maxillary first molar about ready to shit my pants. I kind of reminds me of Socrates when he said, the best surgeon served in war.
Yeah.
You can't beat that experience.
That's exactly right.
And when I saw Carl Misch place 20 implants in 10 minutes.
Carl assisted me on my first sinus lift. He was my assistant.
Really?
Yeah. And he told me, hold the osteotome, because we had cut the hole. He said, hold the osteotome still. And I said, hell, I'm trying to hold it still. I'm scared. We're fixing to knock a hole in this guy's sinus. And so, I know exactly. I get to watch him, and you just see.
And that's what people say about you. They saw the production at a level where they just realized, oh my God, I'm back in the first grade tinkering along.
But what happens that I find very interesting is we also do what's called an over-the-shoulder program, where it's just a couple of days. They bring in some team members, and then they come in and just watch me work for 2 days, which I think that there's a lot of value to that. I really believe there's a lot of value because you can say, well, I couldn't do it that way. But when you see me doing it and having a pretty relaxed day, I don't run late for lunch, and I don't run late at the end of the day, whereas most dentists are late all the time. Matter of fact, this afternoon, later on, I'm speaking, and I'm going to be talking about how do I schedule that. How do I schedule where I don't run behind? Well, there's ways to do that, and so it's an easy, high production day.
One of the things I wish they do to increase their production is I think the dentist should get one of those air guns that you bring to the football game. And every time you ask for something and the assistant's got to leave the room, you should just tell your patient, cover your ears. Until the office manager shows up and say,
what's going on?
This is a crown on number 3.
Yeah.
This is a root canal on a first molar. I mean, the logistics. And then you'll say, what is your number 1 labor? You'll say, number 1 cost. You'll say labor. I'll say, no, it's adjusted production. What's your second cost? Labor. Okay, why did your dental assistant have to leave the room? Well, we only have one of these. And I'm like, where is that on your cost overhead?
Exactly.
And guys like you do tubs or I mean.
Oh yeah, we do.
Yeah,
it all comes in.
When you guys go, you just go.
We go. Yeah.
No one leaves the room because they only have one burr.
No, we've got, everything's there. When I get up, it's kind of funny because in the state of Texas, I have to pretty well do everything. I don't have expanded assistants. I don't have any of that. I don't have anybody that can numb patients. They're looking at maybe passing that in the state of Texas, which I'll just hire a hygienist to go numb my patients because I don't like doing it. So I'll have somebody else do it that's really good, and then I'll just come in and fix teeth and do that. But the neat thing is having a team that's so well trained. Most people, you look at football teams, you look at, they practice all week to play a game. Yet we never practice anything. We just go in, here's your helmet, here's your gun, we're in the war, just get in there and do your best. Whereas I spend time, training my team every day. I call it training opportunities. If there's something not right, I used to throw a fit. And I learned that doesn't work. God has a sense of humor. He gave me 4 daughters. So I had to learn to speak a different language because I have a tendency, you had all boys, you could, my dad was a Marine aviator. And so it was like my way or the highway. This is the way it's done, boy, and don't talk back, don't look at me, So I tried that for the first 10 years in practice. Didn't work well. I was not the most well thought of guy in town, and I joke that everybody in town used to work for me at one point in time or another. And then I had to learn to speak this different language, and so now I call them training opportunities. Something doesn't go right at the end of the day, I said, man, we had a great day, everything went good, but I tell you what, if we want to do this, let's kind of do it this way.
We have so much in common because I grew up with 5 sisters. And my dad sounds like your dad. His nickname, Howard Eugene Farran. I'm Howard Eugene Farran. His nickname was Mean Gene. And all 5 of my sisters worked for him for a little amount of time. They all quit.
Yep.
But he was my dad. I stayed through it for 10 years. And my sister would say, why do you work for Dad? He's Mean Gene. And I'm like, works for him. And it was when they fired that Indiana Hoosier basketball coach. What was his name?
Bobby Knight.
Bobby Knight is like, okay, you might not have liked Bobby Knight's manager style, but he was dealing with a lot of rough and tough kids from fatherless families, inner city, and that works in the Marine Corps and for some coaches.
It really does.
And for a bunch of freaking, people who live in the suburbs to fire that guy, what an idiot.
I know.
But you're right. What works for Bobby Knight throwing a chair at a bunch of guys who each one could kick his ass.
Exactly.
Versus my dad working with my 5 sisters, or you working with your 4 daughters, or a man working dental office, it's probably not going to fly.
I had to learn to speak that different language, and that's when people ask, well, how did you learn to do that. How did you change? Well, I had to. I mean, I literally had to change, because if I didn't, I would not be a productive dentist. I would, drive myself crazy, because I wanted it done exactly this way every time. Well, it's funny, when I started being nice to people, in particular my team around me, they're family now. I mean, they're just like my family. Yeah. And I have one that's been with me 30 years. I tell him she loved abuse early on, and then we learned to communicate in a different way. But that, I think, having a team, and you said, you've said this before, I couldn't be productive, without the team I have. They're well trained. I'm constantly training on a daily basis.
Okay, but I'm going to get more specific. So these courses are in Dallas?
Dallas-Fort Worth area. We have them in Dallas or Fort Worth. I like it.
They're 2.5 days. Is that a Thursday, Friday, half Saturday?
Thursday, Friday, half day Saturday.
And how much do they cost?
I think it's about $4,000 for the doc and $1,000 per team member.
And how often do you have one?
We have them once a quarter. We do 4 programs a year.
So this person, you would recommend that they come once or that they come 4 quarters?
Well,
I mean, when you said your average client did $250,000 more.
Yes.
So they're thinking, okay, if I pay $4,000, it's like, who wouldn't learn how to do Invisalign? I mean, the course is $3,000 and your first case is $5,000.
Exactly.
So I'm trying to get specific. If someone signed up for your $4,000 course to come to Dallas Fort Worth area and listen to this for a Thursday, Friday, half day Saturday, and your average guy does $280,000 more, would that average guy just see you that one time?
He sees me that weekend, and then our coaches take over. We have lots of we have webinars, we have all kinds of stuff. We do a lot of communication stuff. We have other courses too that we do besides what we call the productivity workshop. We have a new course that I'm not going to be teaching, but it's on the oral systemic connection, how to treat perio and help prevent heart disease, heart attacks and strokes. So that's another program we're doing.
A lot of people are there's a lot of people who say, well, that's a correlation. That's not cause and effect. Mm-hmm. What do you say to those
There's
guys?
a new article out now. Brad Bale and Amy Duneen just came out. It is causative.
Where was that at?
It was published.
Can you email it to me?
I can. It was published 3 months ago, and it's the largest read article in the world right now. And they wrote a book called Beating the Heart Attack Gene, and it is phenomenal.
Yeah, they wrote that book?
Yes, they did. And I've been following their stuff now for
have you read Beating the Heart Attack Gene?
I have.
In a nutshell, what is that book? Because so many smart people have recommended that book.
Let me tell you, it just spells it out. It's kind of like I went to Brad as my doctor, because I've had some heart issues, and I went to him. He spent 7 hours with me. He doesn't take insurance. He explained to me everything.
The guy who wrote the book?
Yeah.
You went to that guy?
Yeah.
What's it?
Brad Bale.
Where is he at?
He's in Nashville, but he also goes down to Lubbock, Texas, and I went there. He's booked. He does only straight cash. And he's booked for a year and a half. I worked my way in, obviously, and got to see him.
Moly.
But he spent 7 hours. So at the end of that day, I knew exactly, and here's what I loved about what he said. He said, Bruce, I've given you all the information you need to know not to have a heart attack or a stroke. If you follow my advice, we will guarantee you won't have a heart attack or a stroke. He said, if you don't follow my advice, shame on you. And that's kind of the way I am with my patients, If you follow this advice, you're going to keep your teeth the rest of your lifetime. If you don't follow my advice,
see, my most of my heart disease came from 2 divorces. Is that even fixable?
Most of mine did too. same cause.
Yeah.
So, but I'm telling you, they're onto something special, and these bacteria in the mouth play a key role. He believes 50% of the heart attacks are caused by 5 particular pathogens that are in the mouth. They're very bad pathogens. Now, not everybody has them, but you know the perfectly healthy guy that's out running, he jogs, he eats well, he doesn't drop dead of a heart attack. Well, they're showing, you go through that whole process.
They think those are bacteria? You know what I think is crazy? I mean, and Listerine needs to man up to the deal. But when people had gonorrhea, Well, they just thought, well, since you're doing it down there, that's where it was. And they found it and cultured it and all that stuff.
Yep.
But now that everything's gone to condoms and oral,
Yep.
they're finding gonorrhea in the mouth. They're trading it upstairs.
Yep.
And 60 seconds of Listerine after oral sex kills gonorrhea. But they're kind of afraid. Do you really want to go on CNN and say after you blow someone to switch? I mean, I'm serious.
Yeah.
And these people will put on a condom downstairs and then go stick their tongue in someone's mouth. It's like, are you out of your mind? If I told you that hippo was infected with a deadly disease, would you sit there and say, well, I won't lick its butt, but I'll lick its tongue? I mean,
you're exactly right.
I mean,
what's wild?
How is it not?
What's
connected?
wild is when patients don't respond to treatment, they're being reinfected by their spouse.
Yeah,
they call it mothers, lovers, and dogs, or their
mothers,
pets.
lovers, and dogs.
You know, it's either from mom or their spouse or their
to
lover.
show you how crazy dentists are. You can walk into any dental office, you can find they're treating the female every 3 months on a perio program, and they've seen her for 10 years, and they've never seen her lover.
Right.
And you're like, okay, is she married? Yeah. Does she sleep with someone? Yeah, Frank. Does she ever kiss Frank? Yeah, every night. Have you ever seen Frank? No. Well, what if we turned her upside down? Would you see her every 3 months for chlamydia? Without saying... Are you sleeping with someone that's got chlamydia? I mean, why is it that if they're standing on their feet,
I know,
and looking at their mouth, you're like, is this connected? And then you flip them over on their hands, and you're like, oh my God.
Well, when this article came out 3 months ago, I knew it was coming out because I'd become friends with Brad and Amy. And when it did finally come out...
Can you email me the article or the link? Or start a thread on Dentaltown with it.
That's a great thought.
Start a thread on Dentaltown.
Yeah,
Post that link on Dentaltown.
I will. And
tell him I want to podcast him. If he wants a podcast,
I can make that happen easy.
I'd love that.
Yeah, you'll be amazed at his excitement. What his goal is to wipe heart disease off the #1 killer list. And we're working with him to try to help him achieve that. It's going to take a lot of hard work.
Well, it's not going to happen in America. You know why? Because when Medicaid and Medicare pays $120,000 for a coronary artery bypass graft, and then they only pay you $20 to see Grandpa for a 10-minute consultation because he's sick.
You got it.
Are you gonna be a plumber and take out veins and pipes in his leg and redo his coronary arteries? Or are you gonna sit there and talk to Grandpa for 20 minutes for $20?
Yep, you can do it. And it's our system.
It's perverted incentives.
It is, and what we have to do is we have to find the right individuals to because people will pay cash for a big screen TV, or for whatever but if it has to do with their health, if you say, well, Howard, if you paid $5,000 and followed the advice of this guy, you're not going to have a heart attack or stroke, guaranteed. I mean, you're going to say, here's $5,000. And
there's a lot of people. TV.
Here's my big screen TV. You guys take trades.
So I got an MBA from Arizona State University, and it's 200 in the class, and 5 or 10 of those guys were sent from these major hospitals.
Right.
And they told me from all these major hospitals in Phoenix that we get $70,000 for a mastectomy, we get $100,000 for a bypass. If we don't fillet up something 3 to 4 times a day, we will get $78 because we're losing money on all the Medicaid, insurance, Medicare reimbursement.
You got it.
Every exam, every health visit, everything we do, we lose money on. But then they pay us 6 figures for these surgeries.
Oh, yeah.
So we have to do 3 surgeries a day to break even, and the 4th one's profit. And looking at their chart, you're like, this is a stupid system.
Yeah, well, you go in and have a heart attack. You go into the ER, and you're coded there. I mean, you get a code, and that code is how much they're going to pay you for it. No matter whether you die right then or you have 15 tests now. That's the way they've now made it to where here's your amount for anybody that walks into the ER that's having a heart attack. This is what it is. You're going to get $15,000 or whatever it is. The best thing for that hospital, profit-wise, is if you die in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Because they make $15,000, don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
That's a perverted system. So there's no question. There's no question about it. But I think dentistry
and
has
Americans
gotta
would
change.
never allow that system
No.
for their house or their car.
No,
But
no
they
way.
allow it for their
For the
body.
health. Yeah,
Their whole body.
You see it. You got a guy who drives in. He's, I mean, work. You know, obviously in an upper middle class. I mean, upper class, and they walk in and they go, well, my insurance doesn't cover it. I'm just not going to do it. That's like, okay, well, that's your problem. It's not my problem, and that's one of the things we teach at Productive Dentist Academy. You know, none of this stuff in their mouths is my problem. It's all theirs. And so my goal is I go through risk factors like John Coyce, and I go through them, except I added a couple extra risk factors. I added physiologic risk, which would be sleep apnea, and I added psycho risk. Because, you know, hey, if they're psycho, I want to know before, you know, I start working on them. If I start, you know, if they're bitching and moaning about every single thing that's happened to them, my daughter was going to bring me and she didn't show up on time, and then she starts griping about her last office, and then she's, you know, that's my psycho evaluation, and I go, my fees go up triple, you know, and I just tell them, you know, it's the old Dick Barnes reconstruction fee, you know, instead of except he used to do it for every check mark. It was $100. I could do $250 for every negative comment they make. I make a check mark in my head, and that's $250 extra on top of the treatment plan. So I'll say, Mary, you know, your case is very difficult, very complex, and you know that already. And they go, yeah, I do. And I said, so you're going to see I'm going to have Gay go over exactly what you're looking at cost-wise, and you're going to see there's a reconstruction fee. Insurance doesn't cover that. But it's really because of your complexity of your case, and yours is going to be $500 for that. And the patient's like, oh, okay. And, you know, Gay comes out a few minutes later and she says, well, she's ready to get it done. She's ready to get the work done. And I'm thinking, she's going to do it? You know, I'm trying to not do the work on her by charging her an exorbitant amount, but she wants you to do it. And I said, well, tell her that's just for the upper, and it's another $13,500 for the lower. You know, so let's just not, you know, I just don't want to work on them, you know. And so if I do work on them, which we all do, you know, we know they're crazy. We say, well, you know, if I do, I'm going to help them out. I'm a good dentist. I can take care of them. I'm going to be better than the last 5 guys that she left. And if we do that, shame on us. I mean, it's our problem. It's not theirs, you know.
So Bruce, I just read Pathways to the Vault by Stephen Cohn. I think the greatest way to get the greatest information for the cheapest amount is to buy, I think, Carl Misch's book. I mean, I read that before I flew out to Pittsburgh.
That was smart.
And I was amazed at all the questions. I was just sitting there thinking the whole time, like, these guys didn't even read chapter 1.
Yeah.
I mean, you would have known all this shit if you read chapter 1.
That's right.
But the millennials, they like online CE. They like podcasts. They don't like textbooks. But they're sitting there. So you're talking right now. Most likely, you're talking to the 30 and under.
Right.
Okay. And she's sitting there thinking, Bruce, I got $350,000 student loans. And I just got out of school, and I didn't place an implant, I didn't do an Invisalign, I didn't do a sleep apnea, I didn't do an arch, I didn't do any of this stuff. But I want to pay off my student loans. I don't want to work for Aspen till I'm 103.
Absolutely.
What should she learn how to do? Would you recommend Invisalign, sleep apnea? What did you just mention? Sleep apnea, Invisalign.
Implants or
implants, sinus bone graft.
Yeah.
How would you prioritize? Because you can't learn all that stuff in the first year.
You know, it's a super question because we have this a lot. We have a lot of young dentists that come, and you know, because they for some reason, you know, when you get out of dental school and you're $500,000 in debt, you know,
you're motivated to learn something.
You're motivated to figure it out. And Productive Dentist Academy sounds like I need to be productive so that I can do this. So they come. It's not about any one little thing. Yes, I would say do Invisalign. That's easy to learn. It's something but people who learn, I know I went through Misch back in the late 80s and went through Dawson. You go to those courses and you learn all this stuff, but you can't learn to communicate it to a patient. So my first thing is I always say, let's learn communication skills first. That's some of the first things we work on, is not being afraid to do Obviously, we only see what we know. So, I mean, if you look in the mouth and you've never done an implant, well, you're not thinking about an implant, you're thinking about a bridge or whatever it is. If you don't know Invisalign, you're not thinking about Invisalign. So it limits your total productivity possibilities. But if you learn the communication skills, then you pick up something like, sleep apnea. First of all, I do very little work. I've got a gal who I call, she's my sleep specialist. I just walk in and say, hey, and give them a high five and tell them, yeah, they'd be a good candidate, and I do very little. Invisalign, same way. So those are great add-on benefits, but being able to learn to communicate with patients, going through what we do is our exam process. We do our exam process the same way every single time. And we lean the patient back. First thing I do is I meet him.
Is this a new patient exam or
it's a new patient exam? New patient exam.
And you cover this in your 2.5-day course?
I do. And that examination is the critical part of really being productive. It is, if you look at our hygiene department, all of our patients have been completely diagnosed. Now, do things change? Yes. But when I go into hygiene, my hygiene visits, I've got 5 hygienists. I'm checking hygiene during my regular day, but my hygiene visits are usually high fives, and I look at my hygienist and I say, Cammie, how are things looking? And she tells me we're ready to get this upper right quad done. And I said, all right, well, yeah, and can we still do a crown on this, or is it going to need endo, whatever it is? And so that allows us to be productive. That's what we teach a young dentist is, this is how you get an introduction. This is how you build trust. You listened to Mac this morning. You build trust by asking questions, not by telling them what they need. And you build trust by not giving them the dental school. Here's your exam. Here's your X-rays. Let me show them to you. Here's your models. You got to go through this whole thing. I don't go through any of that. I mean, I think I could make puppet figures on the wall. It would be just as effective as all this other crap that guys are using. I just tell people. Now, a younger dentist may not look at a guy that, if I came in, he would say, well, this is what I would do, Bruce, if I was you. He might say, this is what if you were my dad, this is the way I would treat him. Now, as I've gotten older now, I'd say, man, this is what I would do if it was me. Or if I was your age, this is what I'd be thinking. They always say, after we go through this introduction phase, minutes for me to find things, I call it linking. I call it matching and mirroring, which is one of Tony Robbins' deals that I listened to years ago. And I'm saying, I speak broken English when I'm speaking to somebody who doesn't speak, good English, and I just do that. But linking, I want to find things that you and I have in common. And when I find 3 links to a chain that can't be broken, that's what I call it. So now we're buds. I know you, and now when I say, well, Howard, how can I help you? Well, I don't say that until we're buds. Then when I say, how can I help you? You're going to tell me all these things that you really have been thinking about, but you really have been afraid to actually say, but yet you share all this crap with me. Yeah, I really want to get my front teeth done, but I know I got these back ones I got to do. And I let them talk. And then I said, well, tell you what, Howard, let me just lean you back. Let me take a look, see what's going on. I lean them back, and then I set them up. I literally take a mirror and go through them out. And all I'm doing is assessing their risk factors. I'm just looking, saying, yeah, they've got perio. I got their x-rays behind their head. I'm not going to freak them out with, I don't need intraoral pictures. The only time I need an intraoral picture of a tooth that's broken is when I say, you got these big old mercury fillings back here, and they look at me like, what the heck are you talking about? Then I go, but Gay's going to go over that with you with a camera. I don't want to sit in there with a camera and show them stuff. I let my team. But if they're going, yeah, I know, I got some big ones back here. Well, I don't need an intraoral camera for that. So it's just the process of what we do. But if you look at these young dentists coming out of school, start out with one thing, add another. I mean, that's what I did. I mean, I started out of dental school, went to, I had my residency 4 years in the Army, and that was a nice little residency program. It was not a residency, it was just, here's your drill and go fire it up. So that was a good experience. But when I came back and I had to tell people how much it was, and I had to talk to them, and I actually had to, find out about them. That was very difficult.
You know what's different about when you did 4 years in the, when you did Navy?
Army.
When you did 4 years in the Army, everybody's like, dude, thanks for serving the country. That was respectful. Yeah. That was awesome. So now you go do 4 years at Aspen, and you're like, oh man, you went to corporate. 4 years experience is 4 years experience.
It is.
I think you learn just as much in the Indian Public Health Service.
It's my brother.
Aspen,
My brother was
Heartland,
Indian Health
Army,
Service.
Navy.
Yeah.
Because you need to learn how to do a filling, do a crown, do an extraction. And what you need is a lot of warm bodies in the chair.
That's right.
And I don't care if they're on an Indian reservation, an aircraft carrier, or an Aspen.
You got it.
You need to, I mean, how can you be good in crown and bridge if you haven't cut 100 preps?
Exactly.
And my second 100 fillings were twice as good as my first 100 fillings.
No question about it.
You know?
No question about it. And
I remember I still have my first assistant, Jan, and we just celebrated 30 years together. She used to lie to me when I got to school. She says, "You had a very important phone call," because I set up the matrix, I do the amalgam. When I take out the matrix, I'd break the ridge. And after I broke it the second time, she got, you got a phone call, go up front. And then she'd jump over, because when I was in dental school for 8 years, she was an assistant for 8 years, and she would just redo the whole damn thing and look perfect instantly. And then she'd come back and she goes, "You get 2 strikes. I'm not sitting there for 3. And then after about 6 months, she reduced it to 1 strike. She'd say, "You break that ridge 1 time, and I'm finished."
You're out of here. You're out of here. I love it.
I remember one time I went to cement a temporary, and I said, "Okay, mix." And she looked at the temporary, and she threw it over the back of her shoulder, and she was so mad.
I've got one that's been with me 29 years. Should be, like I say, I think she loved abuse early on, and then I've got one that's been with me 18 years, and another one's been 7 or 8. So, and that's all another really, that reduces stress.
So Bruce, I'll tell you straight up though. She thinks she needs to go listen to bonding agents and wear rates. And I tell her, she'll go listen to Gordon for a whole day. And the first morning, all he talks about the wear rates of all the fillings. Right. I'm like, okay, is that really your problem? All your fillings wear down? And then the afternoon, it's all bonding, strings. Is that really your problem? All your fillings fall out? I mean, are they all wearing down or are they all falling out? Because you focus on everything that doesn't matter.
That's right.
And when people say, well, what filling do you use? I say, well, Ivoclar sells $1 billion worth of shit a year. 3M sells $1 billion worth of shit. I've been to their R&D departments in Liechtenstein. 60 guys in white lab coats that all have PhDs who spent 5 years designing this bottle of glue. I bet it's gluey. I really bet it's gluey.
Yeah.
I mean, and so
I'm the same way.
But they need to focus on the soft stuff.
Absolutely.
So we have an industry where for every 100 fillings diagnosed, 38 get drilled, filled, and billed, and 62 don't. So I've seen enough practices where this is what I believe. The average dentist needs 3 patients with a cavity, do 1. I believe that one of those 3 patients will never get anything done, but I see it's that middle third. I've been in so many practices where they're in medical dental billing, same number of charts, same chairs, same employees. One's doing $750, one's doing $1.5 million, and it's because this guy has a 1/3 treatment plan acceptance.
You got it.
And this guy has a 2/3. But she thinks she needs to learn the megapascal bonding rate of every bonding agent from here to China, and then the little nuances of every little different dental implant system.
Yep.
And I'm like, no, you need to learn how to talk to sapiens.
Yep, that's exactly right. You just need to learn how to talk. I mean, learn to communicate. What I know to be true, because I started another company called Compassionate Finance or Comprehensive Finance, is that when people don't have good payment options, that's a problem. When it's half now and half when we see.
Now, what's that website?
It's comprehensivefinance.com. And it is.
When did you start Comprehensive?
6 years ago. We do about $3 million, and we help dentists create their own in-house finance. And we do about $3 million a month now, in over $100 million in the last 5 years.
Comprehensivefinance.com.
Yes. Or you can go, the consumer side is compassionatefinance.com.
So, comprehensivefinance.com. So, my homies went to what is Comprehensive Finance?
Basically, what I found was why, back in 2008 when things kind of changed a little, people things kind of changed. Guys were going like
basically the Great Depression.
I know, and I can't do my work now. And all of a sudden, I started seeing people that used to do veneers with me and do these different things, and all of a sudden now I'm not getting to do those cases. And I realized this is, I'll give you an example. CEREC restoration. I mean, it's costing me $35 for the block, and I'm charging $1,200, and it's costing me $35 for the. Yes, the machine costs. Yeah, but I paid for the machine quickly, but $35 a block, and I'm having a patient. My hard cost to do 5 crowns was less than $200, and I'm letting these people walk out the door because I don't have good financial options for them. What do people want? They want monthly payments. Now, yes, you can use a third-party financing like a Care Credit. You can do that. But 85% of the loans that are done by Care Credit are 12 months interest-free.
Well, 85%
of their loans are 12 months interest-free. So these are the only people that actually could have paid you cash. Instead, you're going to take a 10% hickey just to give them 12 months. If you ask me, we have some financing options.
Okay, so 85% do 12 months is free. So what does that mean? If the doctor finances $1 worth of dentistry, how much do they get?
They get the dollar plus interest.
The dentist gets $1 from Care Credit?
No, not Care Credit. They're going to get 90 cents.
Okay, so with Care Credit, you sell $1 to Care Credit
and get 90 cents.
And get 90 cents.
And you also had to take your 40% discount on your PPO too.
Yeah. Okay, so if I do patient comprehensivefinance.com, how does that work? I sell you $1 a paper?
It is paper. I mean, you own your own paper. So what you do is we have a online in the cloud software that's very simple to use. You get to set your own rules on who you want to accept and who you don't. You could accept everyone as long as you get 20% down. I'm going to give you an example. If you
can you like make sure
down,
like just kick out like all Irish Catholic alcoholics?
Well, we'd lose half of our. We'd lose half.
You'd lose half.
Half my buddies.
Half your friends.
Yeah, but
you'd lose half the family reunion.
Yeah, but the thing that we look at is if I can cover my hard costs, then what do I have? What do I have? Time. It's all about time. So how do I make my time value greater? How do I produce 3,000 an hour? How do I do 24,000 a day? Well, I can make it affordable. So instead of doing Gordon, I'm going to talk about this afternoon, Gordon Christensen says that 9 out of 10 crowns are done one at a time. Why? People
96%.
And that's, I love it. Because now you tell the patient, you need 5 crowns. And the patient says, oh man, how much is that? No, they don't say that. They said, how much will my insurance cover? They say, oh, well, your insurance can cover $1,500. Your portion is going to be $3,500. And the patient says, oh man, $3,500? Well, can we just do one? And you go, yeah. And your team member is great because she's nice, and she says, oh yeah, we can just do one. That's fine. And then the doctor's out there clapping because he gets to do 1 crown. Well, I'm sitting here going, no, we need to do 5. We can do 5. And what we say to the patient is, well, you could do just 1, but why would you want to do that? Dr. Baird can give you a pill. You can snooze. You can get all 5 done at one time, and we can work out some convenient monthly payments. We'll use the insurance as your down payment. So now insurance pays me $1,500. I work out some convenient monthly payments for $3,500, and I do 5 crowns in an hour and a half. Now I just produce $5,000 plus build-ups, maybe $6,000. The patient's monthly payment is going to be $85, $100, $120 a month. What if they don't pay me? Well, I'm going to keep doing this. I mean, what is the chance? What if they don't pay you? Okay, you lost it, but you covered your productivity for the hour. What we know is we collected a 96.2% rate with comprehensive finance. The average dental office only collects at 93.5%, and you probably have statistics that are much more accurate than that. So we know that an A, B, C, D, or an E. An E patient, we know they default at 17.5%.
Now, does your on-the-cloud finance, does it do a background check?
It goes to everything. It actually looks at their checking history, which is much more important than their FICO score. Because now you see somebody that writes monthly payments for their cars, they write monthly payments for their house, and they're never late. But let's look at the E, the worst kind of credit.
So they come into A, B, C, D, E?
Yep.
A, B, C, D, E.
Yep. And let's look at the E's. The E's, we know default at over a 17% rate. Well, is that bad? I got my hard. Those people 17.9% interest because I can do that in the state of Texas. There are certain states, there's about 12 states that you can't charge that much, but I charge 17.9 for E's. So I've got 83 out of 100 people paying me monthly revenue at a 17.9% interest rate, and I already know that 17%, basically 1 out of 5 are going to default at a certain time. What we know is that's usually at the 8th month. Okay, I got 8 month payments, but I got 83 out of 100 other people making payments. So the ones who make the payments offset the ones who don't. That's what interest does. That's why banks do what they do. But they're putting money up. We're just putting time up. You know, Care Credit has to make sure they're going to pay them back. They're putting cash up. I'm not putting cash up. I'd rather just produce $325 an hour like the average dentist, or $405. I'd rather do $405 an hour. Hell no, I want to do $3,000 an hour. I get to do a lot more dentistry, and I get monthly payments. And you know what? Most dentists don't ever take more than 1 week off. You know why? You know why? Because they can't. They got their overhead, their team overhead is 35%. They're writing 40% off from PPOs. So what happens if you have revenue coming in every single month? It starts out at $3,000 a month, $4,000, $8,000, $12,000, $15,000, $20,000. Now you got $35,000, $40,000, $50,000 a month coming in. We've got a couple of practices that have over $2 million in paper. They're making more money now on their paper than they used to produce. It's just a game changer as far as the way we think. But what's most important? Most important to me is we're actually getting to help more people. Because say Care Credit approved 50%. Well, what about all the 50% of the people who didn't get approved? Well, what are our options for them? Prepay. Why don't you?
Okay, well, I just want to end on this. 2 notes. Everybody always remembers Henry Ford. He didn't invent the car. Daimler-Benz invented it in Germany in the 1880s, and Mercedes was named after his daughter. But Henry Ford invented the assembly line. But everybody doesn't remember why Henry Ford's assembly line came to an end. And it was because GMC started installment credit. Henry Ford wanted his $680 right now,
yep.
And GMAC financing started, and the minute GM said, you didn't give us all the money and we'll do GMAC finance, ever since that started, Henry Ford's Model T shut down, and GMAC finance has made $3 of net income for every one GM made. Perfect. And then as an Irish boy, I have to thank a Jewish man out of London named Singer. There were 100 sewing machine companies, and during the Irish diaspora, 1 million Irish landed on the shore in America, my people,
yep.
of 1850, 40 years before the Statue of Liberty, and you could only get a job if you had a sewing machine. And the sewing machine was $50, and everybody wanted their $50. They didn't have a shirt off their back. It was old man Singer who said, I'll give you a sewing machine if you give me you get paid every Friday $3, and you come give Singer one of them. He gave the $50 sewing machines to every Irishman.
Bingo.
And which sewing machine does your grandma remember?
Same.
Singer. She didn't remember anybody who demanded pay in full. And the other thing they don't get is, I know a lot of buddies who won't sign up for a PPO.
Right.
And because they say, well, I'm not doing a 40% reduction. But they spend an hour and a half to do a crown. And then it's like, well, if you're going to do it 40% less, can't you do a crown in an hour? Why can't you do a crown faster? But they numb, and then they go sit in their office for 10 minutes drinking coffee.
Yeah.
And then they come back and prep, and then leave while their assistant packs cord for 10 or 15 minutes. Yeah. And then they come back and take an impression, and then leave while she spends half an hour making a temporary.
I haven't packed cord. We haven't packed cord in our office in 15 years, and we buffer all of our anesthetics so I can sit there and get to do the work all while I'm there. I just sit down.
What do you not? If you don't pack cord, what do you do?
We use H&H impression.
Yeah.
You know?
So, Dennis, Bruce Baird, probably the most feedback I've ever gotten on a podcast. You're $350,000 in student loans, and his average client collected $280,000.
$280 last year, yeah.
$280 the last year. He's a good old boy from Texas. I love him to death. Bruce, thanks so much for coming back on my show, buddy.
Anytime, man.
You're a hell of a guy.
You know it. I love it.
All right,
thanks,
love you
guys.
more.